Dr. Shafer, before I inquire further, I would like to go through, if you could kind of explain some of the basic terminology and some of the equipment and medical devices that we've heard about during this trial. Initially, we've heard a great deal prior to your arrival regarding a saline bag. And did you arrange for some various equipment to be here today for demonstrative purposes?
That is correct.
Would the court like these marked as exhibits or just for demonstration? Or
As if you want them received.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Shafer, this is, holding in my hand, it indicates it's a 0.09% sodium chloride, 1,000 milliliter bag. Let me ask you, first of all, do you recognize what this item is?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And first of all, this bag I'm holding, is this what a saline bag comes in when it's purchased by, for example, a doctor?
This particular one, yes.
Okay. And can you just kind of basically describe the components of this saline bag and the terminology that's used in referencing this?
Yes, it'd be
May I
easier.
approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
It'd be easier if I can demonstrate. So that's always discarded. This is a bag of saline, salt water. And what it is used for is several things. First, for patients who are a little bit dehydrated, this gives them some fluid. It's intravenous Gatorade, if you will, to help them get an adequate volume of fluid circulating in their blood vessels. If you were to look at the composition of the clear portion of your blood, after you take out the red cells, the electrolytes in that, the sodium and the chloride in that would look a lot like the sodium and chloride in this. So it can go into your blood and be very comfortably received there. In anesthesia, we always have such a bag. It might be saline or it might be something a little bit different, but not much, a clear solution like this. We always have this going into the patient because we need a way of getting drugs directly into the patient's vein. And so this is sitting above the patient with tubing that comes out to take the drugs right into the vein of the patient. And it's always there and always running just a little bit so that we can get drugs in when we need to. Now, there are several features about this I just want to point out. This port right here, this is a kind of rubber that you can stick a needle into.
And Dr. Which port are you?
I'm referring to this one here, I'm sorry.
Okay, and the color of that is?
This orangish port here. You can stick a needle into that and either draw saline out into a syringe, or for some reason you might want to inject another drug and mix it into this bag. So that's a way of accessing it. It's a special kind of rubber so that when the needle is removed, it self-seals, and you don't have a little constant leak coming out of that. This portion here...
Now you're pointing to the bottom port?
I apologize. Yes. This right here is where you take something called a spike. It's a big white, thick plastic needle. And you put it in here, and it allows a way of getting the liquid, the saline, out of the bag, through the tubing, and into the patient. So I'll actually show you. You have to take this off, like that. And that's the hole where the spike goes. So the spike goes into that hole, and then this hangs above the patient with drug coming out through this channel, through the spike, through the tubing, and to the patient.
Saline or drug?
The saline, the drug, whatever is in here, in this particular bag, it will be saline. That's what's in the bag.
Okay, thank you. Now, when the term IV is used, does that have more than one meaning, or what does it mean when someone says an IV?
An IV, it literally means intravenous, going into the vein. But in medicine, it's used for several different kinds of things. One might just talk about the saline and the tubing as an IV. In anesthesia, we might say, I need to set up an IV. And people know you mean the saline and the tubing that's going to go to the patient. So you might talk about the whole setup as the IV. You might talk about an IV injection, and that means you're going to take a syringe and inject it into the tubing that's going to go into the patient, unless for some reason you would take the syringe and inject it directly into the vein. One might talk about IV drugs, and there you're just talking about the route that the drug took. The drug took the route through the IV. So IV, as a number of meanings, it's not precisely used, but in the context, physicians know what you're talking about when you talk about an IV.
Thank you, doctor. And infusion, what is meant when someone says, I ran an infusion or there was an infusion?
There are generally two ways of giving drugs. One way of giving drugs is if you just shoot the whole thing in. So you have a syringe in your hand and you just squirt the whole thing in. And we call that a bolus. That's the medical word for it. A bolus is when you just jam everything in all at once. An infusion is when it drips in. So an infusion means it's dripping in slowly.
Thank you, doctor. And the term drip, what does that mean and how does it relate to infusion?
So drip is a word, even though I just used the word, it's a word that actually doctors do not use very commonly when talking among themselves. It's an image that we usually use when talking to a lay audience. Doctors would say an infusion, but for a lay audience, often the word drip is used because you can mentally envision drop, 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 drop as the drug is going in. So it is not really a term that's used in medicine, but it's a lay term for an infusion.
Now, speaking specifically about propofol that comes in a vial, can you initially just kind of describe the vial for us and how one would remove drug from the vial?
Yes. Propofol comes in a glass vial, and the vial has a stopper, and then the stopper is covered with a little piece of foil. You have to remove the foil so you can actually get to the vial.
And let me stop for 1 minute, Dr. Shafer. I have People's 30 for identification, which was LAPD item 106. I'm opening up the bag. Dr. Shafer, if you could, as you're describing the components of a propofol vial, you could use People's 30 in explaining to the jury.
So this is a vial that would contain 100 milliliters, or 1,000 milligrams of propofol. This vial is made out of glass, and the propofol in it is sterile when it's provided, which means there's no bacteria in it. The rubber stopper I was mentioning is right on the top there. And to remove the propofol from this vial, one has to go through that rubber stopper. It is possible, but it's rarely done, to take a pair of pliers and remove this aluminum ring. But nobody does that. That's just a pain to do. So you go through the rubber stopper. You can either go through it with a small needle to draw a drug into a syringe, or as has been done in this case, one can go through it with a large spike, as I described for this. And you can remove it with an infusion as a drip. So a spike would go into this, and that would go to a drip chamber, and drug would drip out of this. The one key thing to point out, though, when the saline comes out of this bag, the bag just shrinks. It gets smaller. There's no problem. This doesn't change shape. It's glass.
When you say this, you're referring to...
I'm sorry, yes, my apologies.
People's 30, the propofol.
People's 30. The propofol bottle can't get smaller. It's made out of glass. So in order to remove propofol, you have to let air go back in. Otherwise, there's a suction. So as the propofol comes out of this, air has to be reintroduced because this cannot get smaller, unlike this, which just shrinks as the saline comes out.
Okay, and I'm going to come back to that, but what I'd like you to do, doctor, if you could demonstrate for us how one would actually remove propofol from a vial by replacing it with air, as you've indicated. Did you bring an actual full propofol vial with you for a demonstration?
Yes, I did.
And it's a different shape and
Yes,
design?
yes, it's what I was able to obtain from our pharmacy in Cresskill, New Jersey.
And what I'm holding in my hand is one of those full, unopened propofol vials?
That is correct.
What I'd like you to do, first of all, Dr. Shafer, you said they're all, actually, let me put it on the Elmo for one moment. You said they all have an aluminum seal that needs to be removed before you can even access the rubber stopper. Is that right?
That is correct.
Thanks. And again, it being a different shape bottle, or is the basic design the same as it relates to the seal and the rubber stopper?
Yes, it is.
And I'm going to leave that up there and approach the witness. Dr. Shafer, may I publish this to the jury on just to show, or just show the top?
Mr. Chernoff.
Can I take a look at it, please?
Please. The item's being shown to Mr. Chernoff.
No objection.
All right, thank you. Do you do or do not want it marked?
I don't think it needs to be marked on. I just want the jury to see the top.
There being no objection, you may. Why don't you start off a little further along for the benefit of the alternates? Thank you. Starting with the alternates and working down from the higher numbered jurors to the lower numbered jurors in the box.
Dr. Shafer, showing you this bottle of propofol, then can you kind of walk us through, number one, how you remove the aluminum seal, and then we'll go to how you actually remove the drug from a vial of propofol.
Yeah. This part does not require any medical training. You simply grab this and remove the seal.
And you now basically remove the,
Yes.
it's almost like opening a soda lid or something of that nature. You just peeled off the aluminum with the handle that comes with it, and now it's exposing the rubber stopper underneath. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
And did you bring a syringe and needle to demonstrate how one would remove drugs
Yes.
from a vial? Is this inappropriate?
Yes, that's a good choice.
And is this a needle?
Yes.
May I approach the witness? Tom?
Yes.